Welcome back to the Oxendine Law podcast. Today we're talking about money, 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 money. Yes, retirement accounts, pension accounts, 401ks. Those are all major parts of divorce settlements. And if you don't know what you're doing, you could lose out on what you're entitled to. So today we're going to break down everything you need to know about how to negotiate your portion of the retirement accounts and how to protect those assets if you in fact hold those assets in your portfolio. Christine, retirement accounts, if they're earned during the marriage or marital property, they're subject to being divided just like everything else. People hate that. They hate giving up their retirement. They said, I earned it. I worked for it. I'm the one that saved it. He or she didn't do anything. They never earned any dollars. They don't have a retirement account. Why do I have to give them some of the hard-earned money that I made during the marriage?
That's right. And bad news for the person who is the one holding the bigger account. Yes, it is 100%, all of it subject. I don't care if your employer did a match or if there was a safe harbor contribution from your employment that wasn't contributed by you. If it's earned during the marriage, it is subject to division, no matter what it is. We're talking 401ks, IRAs, the ones made by the employer, pensions. Those are difficult, but they're in there too. Anything that is earned during your marriage, whether it's a retirement asset or a financial asset. Some people say, well, I didn't put it in a retirement account. I've got it over here in this investment account. Same thing. Those are all going to be subject to division.
Well, and the good news is sometimes people get married and they already have some money in their retirement account. You still get that back, right? So let's say you've got a 401k, for example, and you were working before you got married and you've got $50,000 in your 401k at the time of marriage, and you keep working for that employer during the marriage, and now your account is worth $250,000 at the time of divorce. We can actually calculate what that $50,000 is worth today. So the $50,000 that you had before you got married, you're entitled to get that back as your separate property. The other spouse has no claim to that money, and it's not just the 50,000, it's the gains that have accrued on that 50,000 during the marriage. So all the interest, all the dividends, all the returns on that initial investment go back to you, and only the difference is what's subject to being divided. So don't forget, some of these retirement accounts frequently have a premarital portion and a marital portion. And it's not just 401ks. It could be an investment account. It could be a brokerage account. It could be a pension. A lot of people have started accruing a pension benefit as of the time of marriage. And let's say their pension benefit when they got married was already at $750 per month. And by the time they get divorced, that pension benefit is worth $1,500 per month. Well, that $750, they had got no claim to the $750. They only have a claim to the amount of the pension benefit that was accrued during the marriage. So that's an important point.
Right. And that is unique to investment and retirement accounts. So, for example, if you received just a gift from a family member, someone who was like, hey, I'm going to give you this $30,000. And you take that and you put it into an account that has your spouse's name on it. It is now commingled and it has gone, even if you got it before the marriage. If it's money that you had $50,000 before you got into the marriage sitting in a savings account, just liquid money sitting there. And then during the marriage, you take that and you put it into a joint account. You've lost that separate claim. But that is different for a retirement account or an investment account. You are secured and guaranteed that premarital money. So it is smart if you're looking to get married to make sure that you don't have those liquid monies. If you don't need them as liquid, get those into something that it is automatically protected. You don't have to worry about fighting over it.
That's right. And we need to talk about how to divide these accounts because a lot of people are wondering, okay, so I've got a 401k and it's got $200,000 in it and I need to give my soon to be ex $100,000. Do I just go into my account and pull out $100,000? And the answer is no, 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 because you're going to incur taxes and penalties on accessing that money early. We actually have a very neat tool that we can use for most investment and retirement accounts, not all, but most of them. Is called a qualified domestic relations order. A lot of people, for short, will call that a QDRO. And that's just a court order that the judge signs. We send it to the plan administrator for your retirement account, and that plan administrator will transfer assets and money from that retirement account into a new account set up in the recipient's name, and it's a tax-free transfer. So make sure you don't go and just start liquidating stuff
Right.
because you're going to get that tax bill. And frankly, that's a big mistake that I see people make is when they are negotiating their settlement. It doesn't usually happen with 401ks, but like with brokerage accounts that hold securities and stocks. Let's say you've got an account that's completely made up of stocks and securities, and it's worth $250,000. And as part of the settlement, you agree to give your soon to be ex $50,000 out of the account as cash. Now, that's a problem. You just made a big mistake because there is no cash in that account.
There's not.
It's stocks, it's securities. So you're having to sell stocks and securities in that account to get the 50,000, and that 50,000 has now cost you a lot more than 50,000 because of the capital gains that you're having to pay on liquidating those stocks. And there's going to be other tax implications associated with liquidating those stocks to pay that 50,000 cash. So when you're transferring securities and stocks, make sure you transfer them in kind. Instead of saying, I'm going to give you 50,000 cash out of the account, it's going to say, I'm going to transfer stocks and securities out of that account equal to $50,000. And now you're just transferring the securities themselves. That's a tax-free transfer.
Right.
Liquidating them to pay the cash is not a tax-free event. So that's a big mistake people make.
Sure. And another benefit of the qualified domestic relations order, if once that amount, and it can be either a percentage or a dollar certain. So a lot of times we'll just agree, okay, it's going to be 50%. And so that is going to be subject to gains and losses up until the day that it's divided. Whatever 50% is at the date of division, you each get 50%. If there was a premarital portion, that may be lower. Or we can just set a dollar amount that we are doing part of the retirement account and we're offsetting some other assets. So we're just coming up with a dollar certain that we're going to transfer over. But regardless of whether you're getting a percentage or a dollar certain, you have options as the recipient of that. Number one option is for the plan administrator to create you an identical account under a new account number that he or she can't see that is yours. And it has all the same rules, rights, privileges of the original account. It's just a unique one in your name. You also could have it rolled over to an account that you already have. So if you have a 401k account separately, you can roll it over. You can do either one of those options without suffering any penalties. There's usually a general plan fee of a couple $100 that's divided between the parties, but you suffer no consequences.
Well, and also, you reminded me of another common pitfall, a common mistake that people make. Christine just mentioned that you can make it subject to gains and losses or not subject to gains and losses. At least in my practice, usually almost always with some exceptions, make it subject to gains and losses, because if you don't, somebody potentially is going to get a windfall. And look, guys, the stock market is down right now. I don't know if y'all been paying attention to the stock market, but you can never predict the stock market. You can't predict whether it's going up or whether it's going down. And it's taking a big fall right now. And I guarantee you, a lot of people made the mistake a couple of weeks ago in their divorce settlement. They agreed to pay, let's use the 401k again as an example. Let's say that 401k on the date you negotiated your agreement was worth $200,000. And you agree to give your spouse or soon-to-be ex-spouse $100,000.
Right.
You have to give them $100,000 out of that account. If your account goes down between the date you reach the agreement and the date it's actually divided, they still get $100,000. So in this scenario where your account was worth $200,000 on the day you agree to give them $100,000, but let's say it goes down to $150,000 between now and the time you actually do the division, they're getting $100,000. You're keeping $50,000. Had you put in your agreement that their amount is subject to gains and losses, then it's completely fair for everybody. In other words, if the account goes up between now and the day of the division, then they get the increase on that $100,000 and you get your increase on your $100,000. If it goes down, like the scenario I just set forth, then they get less than $100,000 and you're also getting less too, but at least they're not getting more of the account than you are, right? So I would say always make it subject to gains and losses. And that's a huge mistake that a lot of people make.
Sure. The only time that I'll do a dollar certain is I've done one recently. There was a huge premarital portion. And as far as the tracking, it just made sense to do a dollar certain because it was going to be a percentage of a percentage, which was getting confusing for everyone involved. And to get the settlement done, that client needed to hear a number. And with so much of it being premarital, we weren't really subject to my client having a true loss of any kind. So we did a dollar certain in that scenario, just to make it make sense. Sometimes to people, they want to make it make sense. But also, if you are the recipient, sometimes if you are at a dollar certain, at least you know you're getting that. Right? The stock market could go down. Like, you're not really entitled to that windfall of the gains, but you know you're not subjecting yourself to the losses if you're the recipient getting it over. So sometimes my recipients want a dollar certain because they know that that's exactly what they're betting on. So as the recipient, it does occasionally make sense to just make sure you're getting that dollar amount.
Yeah, there's always exceptions to the rule. So well said. Let's talk about some strategies on how to maybe potentially protect some of your financial accounts and retirement accounts. So, I got a couple of things that come in mind here. Usually, when we're negotiating settlement, we're talking about lots of different categories of assets. We're talking about retirement accounts. We're talking about cash, maybe in a savings account. We're talking about property. Maybe it's the house, maybe it's an investment property. And so at the end of the day, we're taking all those assets, we're putting them together, and then they have a total. And then we figure out of that total, what does everybody get to keep? In my opinion, and I'm giving away some of my secrets, so hopefully opposing counsels and opposing parties aren't listening to our podcast. I'm sure they are. That's okay. I'm still going to use this strategy. In my opinion, and for most of my clients, they want to keep as much retirement as possible because between me and you, retirement is going to be worth a lot more to you in the long run than that cash that's sitting in the bank account. Retirement is going to be worth a lot more to you in the long run than whatever equity you probably have in your house, especially in this current market, right? So if you can keep more of the retirement assets and give the other person maybe a larger portion of the cash, that uses almost always a better bet. Now, I do have some clients that want liquidity, they want access to cash, and so they don't really want to keep more of the retirement because they need the cash. That's fine. I'm talking about in a situation where you don't have that cash need. You're looking at dividing assets. In my opinion, an advantage that you can try and exploit in your settlement is to try and keep some of the assets that potentially will be most valuable to you in the long run. These retirement accounts are going to continue to grow and they're going to add value over a long period of time. In the short term, maybe not. But when you're talking about over a period of 5, 10 years, what's going to be worth more? Giving up more cash today or keeping more retirement account in your retirement portfolio. I guarantee you that retirement portfolio is going to be more, it's going to be worth more 10 or 15 years down the road than what that cash is going to be worth. So
Sure.
I always try to, if we're looking at dividing the pie, right? Let's let's not treat all the assets the same. Some have the potential to be worth more in the long run. I want my clients to have more of those assets as opposed to the other assets.
Yeah, I mean, I tell clients all the time that not all dollars are created equal. A dollar of cash is not necessarily equal to a dollar of retirement, but it depends on what your currency is, like you said. So, I also will oftentimes make the argument. Let's say I had the client, like you're explaining, that he or she really wants to keep more in retirement because they have less of a need. And I know that the other side has more of a cash need. I'll make the argument that, hey, you get to spend yours today. My guy's is sitting in an account he can't touch, so maybe they take a lesser amount because of the liquidity. So let's say they were technically entitled to $100,000 because of our total offset, and I say, "If I give it to you in cash today, will you take 80?" How often does that work?
It works.
And so my client has now not only secured those sort of higher value assets, but has also reduced the amount they have to pay because it sounds great to say, I'll give it to you up front. It's just like if you hit the lottery, right? Are you getting that monthly payout or annual payout? Or are you taking your money up front? Money up front usually results in a lesser amount than money over time. So sometimes that is a good strategy to offer them the money up front at a lower rate if you're able to do that.
I love it when a plan comes together. Yes, I love when that works, and it does work. You'd be surprised how often that works. One other tip here, and this relates to pensions. Again, giving away some more of our secrets, Christine. I don't know. We're not ready to close shop yet, or should we be giving away this many secrets? Pensions are valuable. Pensions are a retirement benefit that pay you out for life, right? And a pension that's earned during the marriage is marital property. It's subject to division, just like everything else. Where some people make the mistake is I will see situations where you've got one spouse that has earned a pension. It's marital. The other spouse rightly has a claim to it, but that person has already retired. And maybe the other spouse is still working and they're still building retirement and they have future earning capacity. I've seen that person that built up that pension is already depending on it to retire, give up half of their pension to their ex spouse. And I've been very successful in arguing that that actually is their income. That should be treated as their income, not as a retirement account that's subject to division. Yes, let's take into consideration in determining how we're going to divide all the other assets, but you can very easily argue that it's not fair under that fact pattern I just gave, where this person is retired
Yeah.
and living on that pension, for them to have to now give up a portion of their income to their ex-spouse. It's almost kind of like alimony, right? If it's not an alimony case, then should that person be giving up what essentially is half of their income to their ex-spouse for life, especially if that other person is still working and earning income, most of the time I'm seeing judges say no, and they either give none or a lower percentage of the pension. But I see people all the time just give away half of that pension when they otherwise maybe could have kept more of it.
Right, right, yeah, I mean, it technically is at that point, like, it is no longer an out there source of funds that is unquantifiable, which is normally what a pension is. Yeah, we can give an estimates of what's the average lifespan of, adult male who's only 46 years old, but it is never quantifiable until the day you retire and take. So it is no longer that out there unquantifiable amount, it's simply your income. So I make the same argument, if my client was making this in salary, would he or she be subject to splitting it? No, they would not. So yeah.
Good tips, good pointers. We have more, but you got to watch other podcasts. If you enjoy these, make sure you get on your favorite platform, subscribe. If you're watching YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell. You'll be the first to know about future episodes and future updates that we may give. As always, we enjoy this time with you guys, and we look forward to seeing you next week.